What's up, comic book fans, and welcome to Comics Icons. Now, JJ, what they call me, and today we got issue number 2, Avengers Twilight. And the end of this issue is just pure genius. Now, this series so far has been an absolute smash hit. Truly amazing, as author Chip Zdarsky seems like he's put together a masterpiece. And if you haven't yet had a chance to check out the first issue, man, I suggest you do. And I'll put a card at the top of this screen, as well as a link to the playlist at the end of the video. But as a quick little refresher, we saw old man Cap, who's long since been out of the game and now a married man, and had no more super soldier serum left in his body. And he starts to find out that this current world is not what he thought it to be. And ever since Hero Day, when hundreds of people and heroes were killed in action, as Ultron enhanced the villains and took control of the Hulk, the world has completely changed. Now there's a new group of Avengers. And then after finding out from Luke Cage that Matt Murdock is now dead, and those Avengers are committing war crimes, and Tony Stark and Janet Van Dyne's kid James is a part of it all, man, Steve has finally had enough, and he then takes a new dose of super soldier serum, created by Luke Cage's team of defenders. So if you guys are ready to see how Cap fights back in this new world that no longer wants his brand of Avengers justice, let's get it. So this issue begins with a couple of S.H.I.E.L.D. soldiers who are stalking and harassing a homeless guy who has 2 priors for public urination and aggressive panhandling. Now this guy is doing nothing but trying to get him some sleep, but they tell him that nobody wants him there. So maybe they'll put him somewhere nobody will see him. Then right before they can scoop him up, they're attacked. Now this homeless guy is absolutely petrified, and he asks his savior not to hurt him, but then he's reassured that everything is gonna be okay. And we see that the guy that saved him is none other than Steve Rogers, back in his old Captain America suit. And he tries to help this guy up. Then we transition over to a diner, and the current Avengers are on the news rescuing people trapped in a fire, which more than likely they caused. But a waitress named Rhonda looks on while talking to a customer who looks like a regular, and she's telling this guy that ain't Cap. And now this guy's like, oh, here we go again. Then he tells her that the original Cap retired, so just let it go. But she's been hearing rumblings that the old Cap's back, and he stopped some cops from jumping on old Brian, the homeless guy that we saw back at the beginning of this issue. As we then see Luke Cage, who's there to pick up some grub, but he listens in on the conversation before grabbing his food and walking out. Then we see Rogers, who's back at the underground base and talking with this new Defenders team, as they're planning to hijack the news on New Year's Eve in Times Square. These guys want to show the world how the government and corporations have been feeding people lies. They want to show the world how people are being displaced and arrested for minor infractions, because the news only shows what they want people to see, and nobody is allowed to record anything or step out of line. Now these guys have been running pirate radio shows, but not enough people even know about them to listen. As Luke Cage walks in, and he lets Cap know that there's an illusion of freedom and we need to shatter it. Then one of the Defenders named Lewis walks in and tells Cap that they've brought her in and she's in room C. So as Luke walks with Rogers, we see how the base is now starting to fill up. And Luke tells Steve about the lack of space and that it's supposed to be a secret base. But Cap, he can't help himself, and he can't just lead him out there to be hunted down by the cops. But he does understand. He knows that the focus should be bigger than that, and he assures Luke that he only needs to go topside one more time to do some recruiting, to which Luke wishes him luck. Then Steve walks into that room C, and we see that it's his wife that was brought in. And y'all, she is pissed. She tells him that he straight up blew up her life, and that anyone in his orbit is just collateral damage to his moral cause. Then she slaps the hell out of him right in the face. And as he tries to apologize to her, she lets him know that now she can't go home, she can't go to work, but she'll at least just try to make herself useful there and help the people that need medical attention since she's trapped there. But him and her, man, y'all, they're finished. Then we move over to the White House, and James Stark and Jarvis are meeting with the president about this Steve Rogers situation. as the president asks if it's really him, to which James lets him know that it is him, that the old man freaked when they were on TV together, and then went and took swings at some cops, and that it looks as if he's gotten recruited by the group of underground losers. But then Jarvis chimes in and tells James that he shouldn't classify the defenders as losers because resistance grows unless it's crushed. To which the president then asks if they should call in the Avengers, but Jarvis lets them know that that's the last thing they need. They don't want any accidental footage of their new Captain America punching the old one. Then he tells them that they'll send the Thunderbolts in, and we see here that even the president seems to have to bow to these guys. But then we see the president attempt to grow himself a pair, and he tells Jarvis that he can't send in the Thunderbolts. He won't let a war start within the borders of his country. And then this makes James smirk a little bit. So now the president asks James what he finds so funny, to which James tells him that what's about to happen, that's what's funny. And then Jarvis lets the president have it. "Who do you think you are?" says Jarvis. To which now the president softly replies, I'm the president, and you're just some CEO. Then Jarvis bosses up and drops some bars on the president and tells him, "I'm the CEO of America, and you're just a mascot." Then the president starts to call for the Secret Service to come help him, but Jarvis then tells him that the secret to the Secret Service is they work for us. And you know damn well you work for us too. It was our money that put you in that seat. Then they let him know that they'll take care of Rogers, and then they bounce out of there. So then we transition over to a Marine base, and these guys are getting their new orders, as sources tell them that terrorists are planning an attack on New Year's Eve. And I gotta say, I'm wondering, where are these sources coming from? I'm thinking that the defenders might have a mole, and I'm wondering if it's Rogers' wife. Or I could be wrong, and it could be they're just listening in on the pirated stations. But how is it that these guys know when and where an attack is being planned? But as the Marines are given their assignment, they appear stunned when they notice that it's the original Captain America and he's gone rogue. But then this guy McGinty, who leads this squad, is stunned when his hat is sniped right off the top of his head. But he knows who did it as he radios for Bullseye to get down here. And honestly, when I saw him here for Bullseye, I got super excited, thinking that it was maybe Benjamin Poindexter, the Bullseye most famous for being a Daredevil rogue, especially since Chip Zdarsky has written some Daredevil. But then we see that it isn't that Bullseye. Instead, it's some young lady named Ramona. But hey, maybe it's a relative, so I reserve the right to be pleasantly surprised later. But she's able to lip read that the Thunderbolts are being sent in after Steve Rogers. Then we see her partner, who's shocked to hear this, because her dad served because of Rogers, and he's an absolute legend, so she doesn't quite know how to feel about this. But Ramona tells her that it doesn't matter how she feels. Their job is to find them and neutralize them. So then we're taken to a seemingly middle-aged woman that's trying to get her kids bundled up and sent off to the school bus on time. And when the kids leave, she's happy as all heck to get us some peace and quiet. Then she sits down, has her a nice little cup of coffee as she watches the Avengers on the news. And the new Captain America giving a speech about helping out wherever they're needed because it's the American way, to which she agrees. But then she's absolutely startled when somebody appears in her home with her. Then we see that it's Steve Rogers as he emerges from a room. And then we find out that this lady is Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel. And this is the person that Steve left to go recruit. But she straight up freaks because he knows he shouldn't be there. But it's important and he's low on allies at the moment. And he tells her that there's so few of them left. And she was one of the best that the Avengers need to. And then she interrupts him, pointing to the TV and telling them that those are the Avengers. And what do you guys think he was about to say before she interrupted him? I feel like he was going to say that the Avengers need to assemble. But then she reminds him about H-Day, and she can't even believe that he would show up there. She's got a family, and he can't possibly ask her to do this. But Steve apologizes to her and tells her that right now it's just him and Luke with a bunch of kids that call themselves Defenders. And they're fighting for a world where they don't have to be scared anymore. But she's not trying to hear any of this, and she tells him to get out. So then as he's leaving, he lets her know that he's heard the stories of people being saved by a giant hand, like the hand of God. Then he lets her know that the Dark Avengers protocols are in effect if she needs to get in touch, and then he leaves. Then we see her go downstairs to her basement where she turns on an old radio, and we find out that she's been monitoring that Defenders radio chatter. Then we transition to Times Square, and it's New Year's Eve night, and the people fill the streets as we see Cap scouting the scene from above. Then we see a couple of the Defenders on the ground level as they knocked out 2 guards and are attempting to tap into the news broadcast trailer, as it appears that one of those mobile cameras is watching what they're doing. Then they're spotted by an officer, but they still need a couple more minutes to get set up. So one of them fights off the guards, but then is quickly outmatched when they see Thunderbolt's troops. And now these guys are calling for some help. And that's when Steve jumps in and takes out a couple of these Thunderbolt troops. But then one of them gets their hands on this kid Tyler, who's installing the broadcast switch. So the kid then tosses it to Cap. But then one of the Thunderbolts pulls out a gun on Cap, who doesn't have his shield right now. And this guy fires a shot, but he misses Steve. Instead, he hits a nearby woman in the shoulder. And then Steve punches this trooper in the face, and then we see Bullseye, who's now perched on a sign above them, and she's got Steve right in her sights. And then she fires a shot, which we then see hitting the broadcast switch. Now, we saw before that this Bullseye chick doesn't seem to miss, so you would think she could have got Steve pretty easily. But I think that she noticed that Steve was helping this lady who had been shot and realized that he's not the bad guy here. But that's just my assumption at the moment. Then the Thunderbolts commander tells them to stand down because this situation is now about to go live around the world and they just shot a civilian. Then Cap is handed a microphone and they tell him that they're live now. So then Steve, he gives this speech to the American people about the government stealing their freedoms and that the Watcher Act is only in place so no one can see what they've been doing and that people have been suffering so they can thrive. And as Americans, they need to help people and not turn their backs. Meanwhile, we see the Thunderbolts commander asking for permission to take Rogers out, but he's told that that won't be necessary, as we see Jarvis is the one giving orders, and he tells him that Steve seems to be doing it on his own. But then once he tells the commander that they've managed to root out the hacker's code, the commander can now send his troops back in. So now Cap and the Defenders are back on the run, and they go into an abandoned department store, and as the Thunderbolts chase after them, Cap and the Defenders then emerge on motorcycles and hightail it out of there. But one of the Defenders is hit when the Thunderbolts open fire. But apparently this guy's not dead, even though it looked like he got shot in the head, but maybe his helmet saved him. I'm not entirely sure. But Cap picks this guy up on his bike, and then they ride off together. And we see that Bullseye is still reluctant to take the shot, even though she obviously could have. Then we see James Stark, who's now working on some new armor that Tony Stark helped him figure out when he last spoke with him. And then he tells Jarvis that he's got everything figured out, but it'll take a while longer to have enough of them ready for the army. But Jarvis tells him that he doesn't want them for the army. He wants James to wear the armor. But James doesn't want to wear the armor. He doesn't want to be like his father, even though he's literally building Iron Man armor, just like Tony would. But James calls them murder machines. And Jarvis tells him that things have changed and Steve Rogers is a dog with a bone. And the only thing that can cause him to misstep is knowing that his friend's son is inside of that machine. Then he tells James that Iron Man is his destiny, that Tony Stark and Janet Van Dyne didn't sire a fool, and I didn't raise a coward. Then we see Jarvis. Now he's alone in his private office. And here's where you guys gotta pay close attention, because I'm guessing your minds are about to be blown, as a voice tells Jarvis that he's losing control, while we simultaneously see someone in a SHIELD uniform back on H-Day, sifting through all of the destruction. As Jarvis then tells this voice that he's hardly lost control. There are bumps along the way, but if there's one thing I've learned from you, it's patience. You didn't have enough of it on H-Day, and so you lost. Then we again see this guy back on H-Day, and he's removing his headgear. Then Jarvis continues, I watched you lose and thought to myself. As we then see the guy in the SHIELD uniform is the Red Skull, and he's holding the head of Ultron. Oh my God. And then as we now see that that's who in fact he's talking to is Ultron, Jarvis continues, how does a robot not have patience? And then Ultron replies to him, I am forever, Skull. Whoa, that's right, folks. Old Jarvis is none other than the Red Skull. Then Ultron continues, but every second is an infinity. You're losing control, and I need you alive in order to fulfill your end of the deal, to free me from your crude prison. Then Skull Jarvis tells him, having your head on ice has been a greater boon than even Stark's. And a deal's a deal, robot. Once I've set this world into shape and I'm ready to depart it, let the robots have their way with it for a millennia. Let Ultron bring Earth into its next era of greatness. Yo. Zdarsky snapped with this one. But then we transition back to the Defenders' underground base. And Luke is asking Tyler if he's getting any good news on the whole Cap broadcast. And Tyler tells him that it doesn't seem like anybody was swayed by Cap's speech. And he's been monitoring some chatter. And other Defenders are bringing back stories. But if anything, people are more against Cap and them than ever. Then he tells Luke that Cap's not taking his reaction very well. So Luke goes to check in on him. And Cap is just sitting there now, sick to his stomach that the people didn't care about what he had to say. Then Luke straight up smacks him in the back of the head. Steve's gotten smacked around quite a bit in this issue. But Luke then basically tells him to man up. We don't do this to be liked. We do it because it's right. Bad people are doing bad things, so we stop them. We do it on our own if we have to, like always. And then he's interrupted when one of the Defenders comes running in telling them that maybe they don't have to do it on their own. That it took their guys months, but they finally got the inside scoop on the government's secret weapon. If we need help, she says to them, then let's get it. From the world's smartest man, Tony Stark. And that's the end of the issue, guys. My God, this is such a dope story so far. And you guys let me know what you think about this. And do you guys think there's a mole on this Defenders team? Or are they just hacking the Defenders broadcast? But what do you guys think is up with this Bullseye chick? Do you think she'll eventually be Team Cap? And how about that Red Skull and Ultron reveal? Do you think James Stark knows about this? Or is he just being strung along for his name's sake? Man, I'm hoping you guys are enjoying this story as much as I am. Cause this is dope. But anyways, if you guys enjoyed the video and this channel, there's a few different ways you can help out. You can give a super thanks, which goes to more comic issues and making this channel continue to improve. But if you're not able to do that, then you can still be a huge help by dropping a like, share, and subscribing to Comics Icons for more icons in the comic book world. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these new video drops. But ladies and gentlemen, it's about that time.